and he's got a jug of wine by his bed, and he's got these women in his bed that he doesn't even care about. He doesn't name them by their names in his journal, and it's clearly that he's basically numbing himself with booze and sex and violence in order to you know, ignore the pain of having killed his wife and kid. And now, that's pretty, I'm not saying it's deep like aren't I a deep writer, but that's pretty deep information to convey in a medium where the fidelity and the resolution is so small right now in terms of video games. And so I knew it was going to come off to a large percentage of gamers as kind of a goofy, aren't we just trying to be sensationalistic? But it really did come out of a place of wanting to explain the character through interactivity versus through a cutscene.
I liked it, I thought it was very funny.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't supposed to be funny.
I apologize.
A great way.
Maybe sex to you is funny. I don't know.
It's true.
Wait, I don't know.
If I could just ask quickly, you've spoken a little bit about.
Hey, let me put my clown nose on and get my horn. Go ahead.
You've spoken a little bit today about how you've changed certain things in games for censorship, and it's always in the media here, especially at the moment with. We don't have an R18+ rating for games in this country, so we often get cut down or games banned and all that sort of thing. How tough is that battle to fight for you when you're requested to, or asked to change things? And how does that all play out?
Well, I mean, are you talking about in America, or when we try to ship the game all over the world?
Oh, all over the world in general, whenever you've been asked to change something for Europe or whatever.
You know, I mean, with Europe, your hands are really tied, because my understanding of it is it's not like here where a company, if they wanted to, you know, could say, you know what, ESRB, which is our rating system, we appreciate what you're doing, but we're gonna pass. You know, we're not gonna deal with your rating. We'll put our own rating. It's kind of like in the comics industry, where for years we had the comics code, and then Marvel 10 years ago finally said, you know what, screw you, we're gonna label our comics our own, which I think was a great thing. So in America, it's different, but in Europe, my understanding was that there's a legal or a government board that pretty much, if they say this is too offensive, they won't release it. And it's got nothing to do with retail or capitalism or consumerism. The government can step in and say, yes, that's not being released in our country. And so in that case, there's no fight to fight. You know, it just is what it is. And so yeah, it's disappointing. I look at it like, we'll have the American version, there's YouTube, there's imports, if people really care about the game enough that they want to see the definitive version, but there's not a lot you can do if you're making games that are, you know, like Twisted Metal Black was and like God of War was, they're clearly aimed at a mature audience. And there is an absolute, you know, double standard's not the right word, but there's absolutely a inconsistency in the consciousness about video games. We can talk all we want about the artistic merit of our medium, but the reality is people still see a lot of these things as kids' toys. And so a PG-13 in a movie, which again, I don't know what movie ratings you guys have down there, but a PG-13 here is the equivalent of an M rating in a game. What I could get away with in God of War would totally be a PG-13 movie, which means that anybody over 13 can pretty much get in. But in a game, it's different. And people like to argue, oh, because it's interactive, which is utter bullshit. Anybody who uses that argument doesn't actually play games or understand games, because that's not a valid argument. But anyway, so you know, you never like to cut it, but you know, what are you going to do? You're dealing with governments and legalities, and you're not dealing at that point with creative fight. So it's painful, but I think it would be more painful if the definitive version wasn't out there. Whether the definitive version becomes the Australian version or the European version or the American version, at least I know there's something out there that is really what we wanted to say, and the rest just hope for the best, but it does suck.
I feel like we're hogging questions again, isn't it? Should we throw it to the floor?
Sure.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could give us an indication of the team sizes that you have for these big games and how long the development cycle is usually.
Well, for the first God of War, I think we had for God of War 1, we probably had about 60, 70 people, and then we outsourced all the high-end cinematics, you know, obviously the music. There's a lot of stuff that gets outsourced, but the core team was about 60 or 70, and then that went on for about 3 years. God of War 2 was I think a little less because we had the core game worked out, but it was probably the same team size, probably a little bigger. And now God of War 3 has been going on. Obviously, they started with a smaller team. I don't know the team size. It's pretty big. I mean, they're getting upwards now of 80 to 100 to 120 in terms. If you look at games like God of War 3 or Uncharted 2, they're up there. But I'm not on those teams anymore, so I don't have an exact number. But the games are around that, to 120, and they range from 2.5 to 3.5 years. Those big games.
What I wanted to say, another thing I wanted to sort of ask you, David, is, I mean, we're very active on our forums on the show, and I know that a great way that you interact with your audience is through forums and blogs, and you're really involved in that. How important do you think it is to be involved in that medium, in terms of interacting with your audience and the people that play your games?
Yeah, I mean, and again, I don't know if this is like fake, because this is, again, I've been totally thinking about this all week, because I'm off the internet right now. I haven't been on the internet I still go on it, but I haven't posted on my blog or gotten on forums, because I got to a breaking point about 3 months ago, and I kind of said, look, I'm going away for 6 months, and the next time you guys hear from me will be when we announce our new game, and then I'll probably start blogging again and stuff. And, on one hand, I've been glad to be off, because I think it's kind of healthier, but I do miss it, and I don't know how important it is at a tangible level, right? I mean, I had, as an industry, developer goes, a relatively successful blog. I had a lot of hits per day, but I never saw that. And, I got a lot of people writing stories about me in the press, which were, more about me and my big mouth than anything else, but sometimes about the games we did. And I know there was a percentage of those people that really liked the connection with not just me, but with the people who made the games and the games that they loved, and we were fortunate enough that we do have a lot of people that are the fans of the games that we do. But I've never seen anything that's indicated to me that from a pure sales standpoint, there is a real value to it. The guys who made Modern Warfare 2, I know who they are. Maybe some of your audience knows who they are because you have a lot of developers there. But the average guy doesn't know Jason West, as one of the key creatives on Modern Warfare 2. But it doesn't really matter, because ultimately it doesn't seem to really, there doesn't seem to be a big correlation between that. However, I still go to blogs of comic book writers. I love Peter David. He's a comic book writer. He writes novels. And I love that I get to peer into this guy's life, and I love that I feel a connection with him, even though it doesn't mean that I buy his comics anymore than I would anybody else's. I don't go buy Will Wheaton's books all the time, but I love going to his blog. And so I don't know yet. I'm kind of conflicted on it. I mean, there's a part of me that loves it and can't wait to get back to it in a few months. But there's also a part of me that's like, if anybody's ever going to know my name, it'll be because they love the games that I've been involved with, and the rest is just a waste of my time. So I don't have an answer. I don't know.
Hi there. In Australia, we've had lots of layoffs in the game industry. Do you have any advice about the sort of games that Australian companies in this climate should now be making, something to basically grow the industry back again?
Well, the only thing I know about Australia is I used to have a raging crush on Olivia Newton-John, right? So I know nothing about.
We all do.
Yeah, I mean, I know nothing
just
about...
in general, the sort of games right now
that could grow the industry?
Yeah.
Nothing that's not going to sound cliche that you haven't heard 100 times before. I mean, everybody knows that Facebook is coming on strong, as, we know the social games. People have talked a lot about, is Facebook going to come out with like a virtual currency that will allow other kinds of games that aren't just social games to flourish? I mean, I'd love to get into that space. But here's what I really think. I really think, nothing succeeds like a really good commercial product aimed at the mainstream audience, made by people who really want to be making that product. And, so I love iPhones and Facebook and I think there is something to be said for a